however you see fit in terms of telling me to advance slides, and I
Yeah,
will.
do this. Thanks, Miss Lewis. All right, so welcome, families. Thank you for joining us on this night. Beautiful day, beautiful weather today. So we appreciate you taking the time to be here. Exciting opportunity for our juniors, rising seniors. Exciting time for you and your families. We love this junior class, and we're excited for them to kind of take on this leadership role next year as seniors. So tonight, we're just going to kind of talk about a few things, what the goals are for the evening. We're going to discuss what to expect for senior year in terms of classes, getting ready for college, getting ready for that next level, what that means for them, and the supports that we'll provide for your students for that. We're going to talk about developmental changes that you might see at this age in particular. It's a big stepping year, moving from junior to senior year, and what to expect from that, both in school and at home, and kind of how to manage that. So we'll talk a little bit about that. We'll obviously highlight some key events and experiences for senior year. It's exciting, prom being a big one, and then the end goal with graduation. So some exciting things to look forward to for senior year. And then finally, understanding ways to support your child during this transition year. Again, we want to partner with you, what to expect at school and then what to expect at home. And we want to kind of create that partnership to make sure that they finish strong, for their senior year. So that's kind of the goal for tonight. And with everything that we do here at DePaul College Prep, we like to start with a prayer. So I'm going to kick it over to Ms. Gleber, and she's going to lead us in prayer.
Great. Thank you, Joe. We'll just take a moment, center ourselves before we dive into a pretty decent chunk of information. So we'll just go ahead, take a couple deep breaths, and start with a prayer. Creator God, source of love, fount of peace, we gather in your name as parents, guardians, and caregivers. We give ourselves to you in this moment. When we are overwhelmed, give us confidence in the small steps. When we are stressed, help us to recognize joyful moments. When we are filled with worry, gift us with reassurance of your presence. When the day keeps us running, remind us to breathe in the life-giving air around us. Infuse us with the breath of the Holy Spirit, knowing that it is in us but not of us. And give us patience and strength for the long days and quick years of childhood. Hold on to our hearts in your loving hands. We ask this in your name, O God. Amen.
Thank you, Ms. Gleber. I'm going to kick it now over to Ms. Lewis and introduce this awesome team we have here tonight.
Wonderful. We have our wonderful assistant principal, Mr. Voss, who kicked us off. Thank you so much. Bree O'Donnell, our intervention specialist. Amelia Gleber, obviously, who led us in that beautiful prayer, which is so apt for the topic this evening. My name is Allison Lewis, and I am head counselor of the school counseling team. I'm joined by Monica Casimir, my colleague in school counseling, and of course, Tony Minestra, my partner, director of college counseling, leads the college counselors on the first floor that you'll be working with even more next year. And we are so grateful also to have Lumara Manuel, who is going to give us some parent perspectives a little later on in the presentation. And I think that that's going to be a real treat. So thank you so much.
All right, hi everyone. I am Bree O'Donnell. I'm the interventionist at DePaul. This is my first year, and thank you so much for being here with us tonight. So just to kick you off, a few things to note about 11th grade comparing to 12th grade. Students should know that time management skills become even more important than they already are. Senior year, they are very busy. They get really involved. Looking into colleges and applying to colleges takes time. So it's going to be really important for them to be proactive in planning when they are getting their academics done as well. Independent learning is commonplace. So this kind of goes hand in hand with our next one for self-advocacy. Of course, their teachers are not going to be hands-off, right? But it's going to be up to the students to reach out if they need any help, if they have any questions. It's their responsibility to schedule meetings with teachers if they need to outside of the classroom. And then conversations between you and your kids about the next steps after high school become more real. It's their last year with us. And so this is really becoming a reality now. We've collected a few thoughts from our senior teachers here about the joys of teaching seniors, as well as maybe a few challenges of teaching seniors. And it might not be surprising to note that maturity falls under both of those categories. So it is wonderful to see the maturity that they have developed since their sophomore year. There's something that happens in that summer between sophomore and junior year where that maturity really grows. That being said, they're still high schoolers, so they are still going to be developing that maturity their senior year. And being the head honchos in the school, that's something to just, keep an eye on. Independent learners, it's great when we see students really taking accountability for their classes and looking for that higher level of engagement. That's when the real learning happens. It leads to really meaningful discussions in class, and we see that the students are digging into that content. And that's a change, certainly, since they were underclassmen, and it's exciting to see. And they start to see more long-term, see the big picture, think outside of themselves and how they want to spend their time, what they might want to major in, or what job they might be interested in the very near future. A couple of challenges outside of that maturity, right? So becoming a more independent learner can be a curve for some students. I think that the support that we offer at DePaul is pretty scaffolded, with our freshmen having the highest level of support, and then just that slow, gradual release of dependencies on teachers sophomore, junior, and then senior year. And so, of course, that will take a learning curve, as I'm sure it has every year. Junior year can lead to anxiety due to the college process. So it's senior year. So it's time consuming, right? And Mr. Minestra will talk more about that, but it certainly can cause some anxiety. So staying organized and realistic about all of that is going to lead to much calmer seniors, right? And then sometimes we see that seniors are taking on many things. They are the heads of the school, so they're really excited about getting involved, and there's a whole lot going on senior year, but that could lead to overcommitment. So that goes back to time management. And then some important areas to focus on. So finishing strong is really, really important, especially second semester when graduation is really in sight. They've been accepted to their schools. There's this disease, I don't know if you've heard of it, called senioritis, that I would say affects about 90% of our students, right? And so it is very real, but it's important for our seniors to create goals and stick to those goals through graduation day. They need to watch their graduation requirements. So their counselors have done credit checks to make sure that they are on track with their classes before they registered for senior year classes, but they should know which of those classes are graduation requirement courses. If your student is taking an IB or an AP class, those classes have culminating exams at the end of the year. So they will be tested on everything that they've learned beginning in August. Like I just said, second semester is equally as important as first semester, and university acceptances are conditional upon maintaining the same level of achievement. And that is something that we would ask you really have a conversation with your students about. It's a real thing, right? And so we have to send a final transcript to their schools after graduation showing that they've graduated. But even if they don't fail a course, and not to scare anybody, but even if they don't fail a course, if they've applied to the school in the fall with a B and they end the semester with a D or a D minus, that's kind of a red flag to schools. And not saying that their acceptance will for sure be revoked if that happens, but it's always a possibility and something to just keep in their minds as they work through their senior year.
Thanks, Ms. O'Donnell. So everyone's favorite thing is summer work. So over the summer, rising senior students will be expected to complete a summer reading assignment for their English courses. That's for every single English class that we have here at DePaul Prep. They do require them to do summer reading. And then when they get back in the fall, there's some type of, assignment that's associated with that reading assignment to make sure that they did the work. And then also there may be some summer assignments in social studies and AP classes. Those teachers will be reaching out and posting on Schoology and talking with those students what those assignments will be and what the expectations are for those assignments. It's nothing too grueling, but still expect to have some work to be done over the summer, and pay attention for those emails that will be sent out to kind of cover the basis for what the expectations will be.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Monica Casimir. I am one of the school counselors. This is my first year at DePaul College Prep, and I would just like to say I enjoy having the privilege of working with your students. It's been very enjoyable so far. Ms. O'Donnell has commented on a couple of these, but I really want to highlight a couple of the skills that we feel that seniors, we would really like seniors to model. And the reason being that when they go into college, these are going to be very critical skills to possess. But those are self-advocacy and some executive functioning and organization skills. To give you an idea, we are really hopeful that, as Ms. O'Donnell said, that kids are growing into this every year. And to give you an example, like freshman year, sophomore year, junior year, we are already working on these skills. And some ideas of that is when I have a student in my office and, I really try to assess if they've tried to work with their teacher, talk with their teacher, and we explore why they have or why they have not. And there are some students that really have not. And we talk about why that is. Even they might be intimidated by the teacher or feel like they're intimidated. They might feel like it's not going to change anything. They might feel like they can't do it. And so we explore that a little bit. And then I give them examples of, how to approach the teacher. And we talk through like I statements, and we talk about the tone to use with the teacher as well. And so the idea is to give them skills to do that. And then we practice that. So in my sessions with students, we'll do some role playing. And I will also have students sit with me and draft an email to their teacher, and we'll go through that, and we'll have I'll have the student email that to the teacher right there. So I do that a lot with my freshmen and my sophomores and my juniors. And again, the idea is if we do that more and more, they become more comfortable doing that for themselves. And then senior year, we'd like to see them doing that quite a bit with their teachers and their counselors. In terms of executive functioning, one other thing that we try to work on a lot with students and that we hope seniors are doing is organizing themselves. And again, this is pretty critical going into college. So organization being, what system do they have to organize their lives? What systems do they have to organize their schoolwork? I try to assess that with my students, and that might be looking like, what do you have a to-do list? How do you put that to-do list together? Are you looking at your to-do list? Like I have students who might have one, but they're not checking it. So we talk about how to set timers to remind them to look at their to-do list. So organizing in that sense, we've worked with students, again, freshmen through senior year on that. And then also in terms of how to balance their lives. So counselors really try to assess well-being quite a bit. And so we'll explore if they're balancing their schoolwork with their activities, if they're getting good sleep habits, if they're eating, they're enjoying life. We want all that for them. And this is, again, critical going into college, because what I've learned through my college visits over the years is that students have a very hard time with the large unstructured blocks of time in college. Like they might have a class, like we've had a class maybe Monday night and that was it. And so it's really learning how to organize that time, and that will help them in college as well. So we are super excited that your juniors are going to be our seniors next year. And that to us means that they're going to be our school leaders. And, our freshmen, sophomores, and juniors are going to be looking up to them. We are going to expect them to be leaders in every way to our students, again, in terms of time management and advocating for themselves, but also in terms of, upholding our core values and in terms of our school policies and our and our school rules. And, we really expect students to have some sense of self-awareness in terms of, what their actions mean, their choices, how their choices affect themselves and maybe other people in the school. And we really would like them to work hand in hand with our teachers as school leaders.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Amelia Gleber. I am the campus minister that coordinates all of the senior retreats. I also had the pleasure of going on Kairos with many of your students this year. But this is a great segue, kind of speaking of some leadership opportunities. They really step up for our department in their senior year, which is really fun and exciting to kind of watch them grow into that and grow as leaders. So of course they have the opportunity to lead Kairos retreats. They are, as always, welcome to join our prayer service team. So being Eucharistic ministers, lectors, helping us with readings, distributing ashes for Ash Wednesday, all of that kind of stuff. So lots of different ways that they can kind of step up and fill some of these roles with the mission and ministry department. Very quickly, just to kind of touch on service. So Jackson Ford is our service coordinator. He has had a lot of face time with your students. They should be pretty familiar with him at this point. But we are continuing kind of as we did in sophomore and junior year, focusing on making sure that athletic teams, co-curriculars are serving together in those already formed student groups. So hopefully your students have already gotten involved in service in some way with their athletic teams and their clubs. Mr. Ford's also posting constantly stuff on Schoology, stuff on MobileServe. A lot of that is getting emailed directly to them. So if they are a student who's doing some more individual service on their own, plenty of outlets for that. One of the kind of awards, distinctions, accolades that they can receive at the end of the year at graduation is the St. Louis de Marillac Service Distinction. So that'll be for those students that really kind of stepped up and went above and beyond with service across their 4 years. It's 75 hours of service across the 4 years, with 50 of those being at Chicago area nonprofits. So again, hopefully this shouldn't be brand new news to your students. Mr. Ford's done a great job of getting in front of them and getting all this information to them. But if you are kind of thinking ahead to some of that graduation stuff, maybe some of the awards and distinctions that they might receive, that's a big one out of our office. In terms of what they'll be participating in, we've got a couple slides on just some of our senior retreat options. So again, I coordinate all of the senior retreats. Every student will attend a retreat. It's our goal that every student attend a retreat each year, including our seniors. So some of the options for their retreats are to lead one of the 6 Kairos retreats that we run. Miss Manuel, her daughter Margot, she's going to speak to you guys in just a minute. She was one of our Rockstar Kairos leaders this year. So that's a really good opportunity for them. They can participate. We have one final opportunity for this grade level to participate on a Kairos in October. They should have already received communication from Flo Merkel-Deutsch about that. And then, of course, they can participate on one of the just senior capstone retreats that we have. We try to give them a lot of variety, a lot of options. We really kind of view this as they're stepping into a maturing faith. They're kind of taking a little bit more control over their own spiritual expression, their spiritual life. So we want to give them a bunch of different options for their senior year so they can kind of choose something that aligns with what they're looking for, with what they need. So just like the information on this next slide is going to say, I'm going to be in their theology classes next week. They'll hear directly from me about all of these opportunities, all of the expectations that we have for them. But yeah, lots of great ways for them to jump in and get involved in mission and ministry for their final year. And like Ms. Casimir was saying, kind of step up and be leaders. So very excited to have them as our school leaders next year.
Thank you so much, Amelia. So we've had an opportunity to talk about kind of the importance of those executive functioning skills and some things to think about within the academic realm. It's great leadership opportunities that these seniors are going to have next year. But we also want to acknowledge, what the emotional landscape of the senior year can look like. This is a big transition year. It's a year of a lot of lasts. The last year of high school, the last year of school prior to going off to college. Lots of big decisions happening and a lot of mixed emotions. There might be a lot of excitement. There might be some stress, some feelings of uncertainty, Certainly lots and lots of nostalgia from parents and students. Students have been shifting their identity closer to independence over these years, and they will continue to do so over the next year and going into college and beyond. And they'll feel an increased pressure as each year of high school, you've noticed sort of that increase in workload and responsibility, and senior year is no different. They're, academically at their top, and there might be some pressure there as they apply to university. They perhaps even feel some pressure socially because they want to be with their friends for that last year of high school, and they're trying to find that balance. And certainly they might feel some big emotions in this year where they're going through an application process they haven't ever quite done before, and that leads them to feel quite vulnerable. And so it can be pretty intense. We really encourage you, if you haven't started doing this already, but to kind of help your rising seniors get some adulting skills under their belt before they leave the nest, learning things like doing the laundry, maintaining a budget, learning how to cook, perhaps cooking some meals at home, taking on more and more of the responsibility in terms of their own deadlines and responsibilities. Naturally, you want to talk about what that independence, what that adulting might look like post-graduation. That's a family conversation. And know that, of course, mistakes will continue to be made, and that's part of the learning process. There's going to be ups and downs this next year and beyond. The family space, that connection with family, is a really important grounding factor for this big transition year. So create that space for those meaningful conversations. Celebrate all the milestones that are upon you over the next year. Set aside some just low pressure family time, go to the movies, take a walk, do whatever fun things that you can do without having those high pressure conversations in the midst every now and again when you can. And naturally you want to honor their continued independence, but continue to stay engaged. And they want you to, despite the fact that sometimes they might be pulling away at the same time. And some other ways to kind of be there during this somewhat, at times, tumultuous time, as all big change moments are. Normalize the ups and downs. There's going to be, lots of successes, and there might be some disappointments, and that's okay. That's part of life. That's part of growth. Ask, how can I support you, rather than trying to solve the issue for your child. Make sure you encourage that balance, so they have that important school time, but they also have some time with their friends, and they also have time to rest their minds, rest their bodies. Be that steady presence. It's not going to be perfect. You're going through your own emotional roller coaster, but stay present. And I know that Wilmara has some incredibly important guidance, just as a parent who's sort of in the thick of it right now. So I'm going to pass it over to her to lend us that wisdom.
Let's hope that I do have that wisdom. Parenting is a hit or miss. Every day is a challenge. But I will say, in thinking about all of this, I tried to keep 5 things in mind this year. So I'm going to open with that, and I'm going to close with that too, because it sort of became my mantra, which is to be patient, to be open, to be flexible, and be prepared to be surprised. Literally, I mean, that sort of sums up what our year has been. The biggest thing, of course, with senior year is everyone has college on their minds. And it seems to take over your world, and it will, but try to not let it do that. I'm not going to say don't get stressed out, because you are, and your child will, and you'll have to work through that. But you're in good hands. The College Counseling Office is an incredible resource. You have great counselors. They've already started working with your students. I have volunteered in that office and I've seen the work that they've done. So take full advantage of that. You know, get your questions answered. Don't walk around mulling over something that, you know, could easily be answered and taken care of. The thing is, your child is going to college, right? They're going to go somewhere. Where is the issue? And that may look very differently at the start of this process than at the end, right? Because as they move along, they discover things that become priorities, or maybe what they thought was super important is not as important anymore. Finances, playing a sport, you know, what kind of program does the school have, all come into play. I will say, just to go back to the College Counseling Office, take advantage of all of the college admissions visits that come to DePaul Prep. Truly, it's a great way for the students to figure out, you know, just initially, does this sound great? And go to as many as you can, and as many different types of schools, especially if they haven't figured out what kind of school. Do I want a big school, suburban school, urban school? So that's a great way to take advantage of that. The other thing I would recommend, a lot of the schools do area info sessions. So they'll come to the Chicago area and people within a 1 hour, 2 hour radius will come to that info session. Go to those info sessions. You don't have to get in the car and visit every single school on your child's list. It's almost impossible, quite honestly, given the time frame. Take advantage of Ramp Up is my other piece of advice. It's a great way to get started on that common app to talk about, you know, those little things like your activities, resume, like what have you done, putting that together, starting your essay. And there are lots of supplemental questions in all of the different schools. So you'll write your main essay, but there are lots of little essays that different schools will ask you. So that's a great way to get started. And I don't know if they'll do that again this year, but last year at the end of Ramped Up, you could go, there were 3 schools students can go visit and choose from. And honestly, that's how my daughter found University of Wisconsin-Madison, and it got on her radar, and it wasn't before, and kind of stayed that way. So lots of opportunities to really get those questions answered, figure out what college is going to look like, what does my list look like. Just take advantage of the College Counseling Office. But I will say, don't get so caught up in senior year that it becomes just college. The year of last is very true, and they are dealing with that, you know, with friends, with the sport that they may play, because most of them are not going to go on and play college sports. And so these are all communities that they're moving away from and leaving. And it's funny, as I hear my daughter and her friends talking, you don't realize how much they're starting to internalize that, you know, all of these last, especially as we're at prom. So most of the year is gone already. And now they're kind of like, oh my God, wait a minute, you know, we just have a few weeks till graduation. So be patient with that. And as much as, you know, they do want to be adults, they're still struggling to be a child. My daughter turned 18 2 months ago, and I told her she had to fill out her doctor forms and talk to them now. And she was like, what do you mean? I don't know what to do. Like, you always do this. And I'm like, all right, we'll walk through it. But those are the little things that begin the separation from, you know, mom and dad doing everything to now they're doing everything. And even the portal, when they're applying to college, they have the password, they log in, the schools communicate with them directly. I will say, you know, check in, make sure that they look, even the most organized, on top of his student needs a little help managing all the messages coming through the portal. So, you know, just check in with them. My other piece of advice is, if you can think of, like, we decided we would talk about college on Sunday during dinner, just to kind of take the stress away of, did you do something today? Or when is it due? Or what's happening? Just to kind of give them an opportunity to not feel so stressed about it. Now, if they bring it up outside of that, then by all means, take advantage of it and, you know, have that conversation. But that might be a good way to start without feeling like it's coming in, you know, 50 different directions. And lastly, I would say, have fun. I mean, it is a year of laughs, and you're watching your child. You survived the 4 years of high school. They've done a great job, and it's not the time to be like, oh, we should have done this, we should have done that. It's okay. It's going to work out. I thought my daughter, who thought of she might want to go far away to school and take advantage of all of this. She's now ending up 2 hours away, to all of our surprise, at a fantastic place, which is fine. But she discovered that along the way as reality set in. She was like, wait, I mean, Syracuse was her, like, at the top of her list. She was like, wait, I can't really drive there. I'm like, no, you can't. I mean, you could, it'll take all day, but, and you have to fly. So those little things start to settle in and make their decision change over time. And lastly, they don't have to share their list with everyone. I will really tell you that everyone's going to have an opinion. Their friends are going to have opinions. Their aunts and uncles are going to have an opinion, and it changes their trajectory. Right now, if they say, I'm thinking of the school, and somebody shares experience, that's great. But it's okay also if they feel like they can just let me get my list together, apply, and then we'll talk about it. It really does take the pressure off, because I noticed that with some of our friends who shared where they were going, and they're all like chiming in, and I was like, okay, wait a minute, and it was a conversation at our house. So I was like, you know what? How about we just let her stay with her list and you guys make your own decision? So, I mean, information is going to come at you in all different directions, right? So just trying to get through that. But I'll end by saying, again, just be patient. It will seem like a really long year, and then all of a sudden the year is over. And you're like, how did this happen? So be patient, be open, be flexible, and be prepared to be surprised. They're awesome kids. They've gotten an amazing education at a wonderful place that is well regarded. So you've done your job. Now we let them take over. So I hope that helps.
Such amazing, wise advice. Thank you so
It took
much.
3 children to get to that point. But
I
that's
mean,
okay. She's the youngest, so we're finally figuring it out.
You are. We need to crown you queen
No,
parent.
not at all.
Literally could not have said anything better. Thank you. That was
You're
wonderful.
welcome.
I'm seeing emojis clapping, so you're getting ovations. Tony Minestra is going to take us home, talking about some programming.
All right. Thanks, Wilmara. We're going to miss you. So themes you're going to pick up on tonight that I hope, have kind of been a thread that's tied us all together tonight. I wrote these down as I was listening: independence, responsibility, ownership, and self-advocacy, and patience. Those are the big words I've kind of picked up leading up till now. Hopefully our office, most of the families on tonight have come to know our office in some way or another, engaged with programming or with individual conferences. I hope that you realize that our job comes, we build a relationship with your students at a really pivotal part of their life, right? They are transitioning from adolescence into, what can be a scary time in terms of adulthood and leaving the home in a lot of cases. So our job is to help build some of that resilience and self-advocacy. And you'll find that our style of counseling is very much empowering to the student. And we really feel like that best arms them, back to Monica's point. So parent-focused programming, if you've tapped in with us before, you know that we are pretty robust in our programming. We have a variety of in-person and online options. The last 3 years, in fact, of our recorded, what we now call Pews, but that's changing names next year to Rams Ready, is archived on our DePaul College Prep planning page, which is a wonderful resource if you haven't checked it out. But we will have a series of events next year. Allison, I think we put the roster together. It's somewhere between 12 and 14 programs to kind of touch a lot of different areas of the college going process. We will have very personal one-on-one connections with our student caseloads. We are a 5-person team, so our caseloads are very manageable, very approachable. That allows for a lot of interpersonal connection. Your students and our team will interface pretty regularly in the fall. We'll also send sort of regular communications out, sort of mass messaging, timing issue things, college is a very cool time in your life for students to search and kind of find what they're looking for. But there's also a lot of logistical things, right? Mara mentioned there's a lot of checks and balances and little things that we need to tighten from time to time. So you'll get some time sensitive communication as well as the students. And then we also offer pretty substantial financial aid support. We have an in-house financial aid workshop we put on, and certainly working with families one-on-one as needed. So for students, I don't know if is this word out yet? I think it is, right? We're changing. Fresh and Advisory is changing into what's called Fresh Foundations now. Similar concepts, but there's going to be advisory style time dedicated for your seniors to take on some, post-secondary topics during the school day. So seniors, that fall is really focused on some of the post-high school facing information. We'll have application support. Any student is welcome to schedule time with us during their study hall, before school, after school, lunchtime, Common App support, essay support, all the good stuff. We have all those resources available to our students. Fall college rep visits, Wilmara teased this earlier. Last year we had, Wilmara, I think probably 150 colleges, something like that, kind of in and out of the building during the school day in the fall. We'll be inviting a majority of those folks back this fall, and hopefully your students have an opportunity to connect with the admission counselors as they spend time in our building. And of course, individual student connections as often as they need it. I will say this, we're not going to go grab your senior by the ear out of their calculus class and have them come sit next to us and complete the Common App. We're really going to encourage self-advocacy. If your student is struggling on a part of the application or they have questions to be answered, we're really going to encourage that student to be proactive in organizing and scheduling that meeting with our team.
Mr. Madesha, thank you for putting my alma mater on that last slide. Go Billikens.
The Billies. Billies. Looking good.
Yep,
we have Coach Voss, we have a number of future Billikens in this senior class, actually.
I know. It's fantastic.
I love it. All right, here's the general college timeline for seniors. You're going to want, once seniors get back to school, sort of mid-August, early August, that's a really good time to encourage them to reconnect with our team and their college counselor. Anything that's changed over the summer, where their head's at. We'd love to get kind of a baseline start for them. Early September is a really good time to connect, okay? Building a balanced college list is essential, right? And this could be balanced in a lot of ways in terms of, selectivity, right? In terms of admissions, it could be financial balance. We're looking to build a really approachable balanced list based on the value set that your student has determined is important to them, right? They'll have, our fresh foundations lessons in class. There'll be a lot of kind of big box counseling we serve during the September and October months. And so those are kind of a really good place to re-engage with the process, right? Application submission. November 1's a big deal, okay? If you're a parent going through this for the first time, there is a lot of pressure packed into the November 1 window, right? That's where a lot of anxiety lives in the modern application process. But your juniors are well equipped now with a lot of the foundational work. If we can chip away at it in the summer and really get after it in September, your seniors should have a low stress fall, right? It all depends on how much they engage with this process. If they hide it under the bed till October 31st, that's going to be a stressful situation, right? So I would encourage you to really have your student engage in conversations, even in uncomfortable conversations, early enough that they feel comfortable once November 1 comes, because as Wilmara mentioned, this time is going to run fast, senior year. And of course, the financial aid process will begin in the fall. We'll walk families through that as well. And the FAFSA and the CSS profile both open on October 1st. We will give you a full rundown on that in the fall. All right, role of the parents and family. And Ms. Lewis was great. Wilmara's excellent. I'll offer what I can based on my experience working with families. I would lead with listening. Okay, you're going to find yourself in positions where your son or daughter may not have led every decision in their life to this point, right? You may have had influence in some choices along the way, but I would really encourage you to allow this time, the next, let's call it 12 to 16 months, right? This time, let's start transitioning into that self-advocacy, that student-led leadership. This is truly their process. You are a guide. You will always be their guide, and you'll always be important to them. But just know that there is anxiety wrapped in this process. There's a lot of peer perspective, as Wilmara mentioned. So I would just encourage you to lead with listening and hear them out. Where's their head at? Is it changing, as Wilmara mentioned, right? Try to listen for those cues and just stay plugged into your student. Again, encourage self-advocacy. Students need to take the lead. College reps do not like emails from parents, okay? So encourage your student as best as you can to be the leader in this discussion, right? If you have a challenging question as a family, maybe sit down with your son or daughter, allow them to pen the email, right, from their email address, but encourage them to self-advocate. It'll help them so much when they have to encounter a professor or a TA or a challenging social situation in college. We like to think of ourselves as your home base, all right? We have an incredibly talented team, okay? Our college counseling team is endlessly talented and endlessly experienced, and we have excellent relationships across the industry. Please lean on us. If I like to call it, there's the parking lot chatter, right? There's the neighborhood things we hear. If you have questions or if things feel overwhelming to you, please tap into our team. That's what we're here for. It's what we do. It's what we love to do. We want to support you. We want to make sure this process is as easy as it can be. Limits are important, right? This is another time you can put your parent hat on, right? The phrase we hear a lot when we hear about like cost considerations is "we'll make it work." Well, will you? Like, what does that mean? We'll make it work. The most heartbreaking scenario for us is when a family has not put guardrails on a college search, and fast forward to now, April, we're 1 day away from college decision day, May 1st, and suddenly the "we'll make it work" plan doesn't really seem viable, right? So it's heartbreaking for a senior then to have to make a choice that's outside of the rules of the game that they thought were in play. So please set limits early, whether that's a 100-mile radius, which my mother put on me, right? Or it's a cost consideration. Whatever those limits look like for your family, please be open and honest with your students. It's the best thing you can do early rather than disappoint them late. Okay. College free zones. Well, Mara mentioned this. I love it. Your kids, every single person in their life, your neighbor, your hairdresser, your friend's dad's uncle, everybody they encounter in their life is talking about college. Where are you going to college? Where are you going to college? Right? They are inundated with it. It's a very scary time for them because not knowing what's next. Right? So find a way to create college-free zones and establish certain times in the week where we're going to talk about this. We're not going to text them during the day. Hey, did you get that done? Did you get this done? We're not going to bombard them when they come home from lacrosse practice, right? We're going to establish college-free zones to give them the space and safety to know that that's not how you value them. Their admission outcomes is not how you value them. Your love is not dependent on where they get into school. Give them space to be kids. And set certain timelines up to speak about certain things college related. This is where parents are going to take the lead, the FAFSA and the CSS profile. Yeah, they're the student's process, but truth be told, this is a parent-led process, okay? Your student will sign their FAFSA and their CSS profile, but this is based on your family's income situation. And we'll cover that in the fall, but you will need to take the lead, start thinking about gathering tax information. You'll take the lead on that in the fall once students file. All right, students, they need to figure out what they want, right? My grandmother used to say, you will never find what you're looking for if you don't know what you're looking for, okay? And I will tell you that in all my years of doing this, it has nothing to do with GPA or test score or extracurriculars. The kids that struggle in the college selection process and search process are the ones that don't know what's important to them, okay? So I would encourage you to encourage your student to really do some self-reflection, figure out what set of values they stand for, what they're looking for in a place, right? Real tangible things, name them, right? Beyond size of the classroom, beyond major, which we all know they're going to change. But what is truly important? What's at the heart of who they are? We can build a list around that. That will be a much more purposeful and connected list, and they'll feel really good about it, okay? Encourage them to stay connected to us, right? I can't help your son or daughter if they show up on October 27th and they're like, what do I do? Right? I mean, we're in the building, right? We are so available to them. Make sure they tap into our skill set. Students are going to manage the search. They're going to drive the process, right? We really want to pass that torch to them. They're going to also stay in communication with admission offices. Well, Mara mentioned reps in the building, the college fair. If your son or daughter is really excited about a school, I would encourage them to reach out to that admission rep, right? Ask a few important questions. Build a relationship. This is still a very relationship-driven process. So I would encourage that communication, okay? We're going to start drafting essays in English. We're going to start next week with our juniors. We co-teach 2 rounds with all levels of the English teachers. So we'll start developing the foundational work that will eventually be their Common App essay, their personal narrative, okay? We'll also work a little bit on that in the summer program that I'll touch on here in a minute. And obviously completing applications by deadlines. There are a very small handful of schools, guys, that have an October 15th deadline. They're all public schools in the Southeast, but it is a very small box of schools. The vast majority of colleges, 99% of schools in the United States of America, have a November 1 or later deadline, okay? So we do have plenty of time. When the Common App opens on August 1, we do not need to be submitting on August 2, all right? Your students will have a 3-month window, which I kind of call that fall action window, to get this done, okay? So just know that you have a little bit of time, and many schools have rolling admissions, regular admissions. November 1 is not the end game, but students will need to be aware of those deadlines. All right, here's some big dates. Mr. Voss, this is right, August 21st, right? We're good there. Early October, we're targeting the first week of October for an optional SAT. So our current juniors, who will be seniors then, will be able to opt into an SAT. They just took one. And those scores are released, by the way, today. The then seniors, your current seniors in October, will have an opportunity to opt in. If they don't opt in that day, it'll still be a day seniors need to be there. We're going to have kind of an open application workshop during that time for any seniors that don't take the SAT. And then fast forward all the way to the week before Christmas, semester 1 exams, right? All right, real quick, I'm not going to go through all of these. We'll have this slide deck up, I'm sure. Currently, so for the SAT, the College Board set of tests, there is 1 date remaining available to register, and that's the June 7th date. Okay, I have heard that many local options are closed, so you're going to have to widen your search to probably 50 to 75 miles. Northwest Indiana. I mean, these are popular testing dates. Okay, so the June 7th date is available now. There are SAT options every month moving into December, but those registration dates are not available yet. And if your student is considering ACT, any college that accepts a score will take either one. If your student's kind of leaning in that direction, they are different tests. You see the dates there as well. DePaul Prep does not offer the ACT in building, so your student would need to attack one of these dates. They're typically offered at larger high schools. Many in the Chicagoland area host it, and they're typically on Saturdays. All right, what do we do with the summer? I would prioritize college research over TikTok, right? There's definitely There's definitely a sense when we get back in the fall of which students have plugged in and which have totally unplugged, right? We can kind of get that sense. It's really difficult to turn this off and then turn it back on. So, to the best of your ability, encourage them to stay engaged in their search process over the summer, and begin building what a realistic college list can look like for them. Their fall will be so much easier if they can come back in late August, early September, and have a really good handle on, like, let's say 4 to 6 schools they're really excited about, right? And maybe there's another handful beyond that, but they really need to have a game plan of how they want to attack some of these apps coming into the fall. So really encourage summer activity there. Go visit campuses, and you'll say, wait, Mr. Menestre, nobody's on campus, right? What's the point? I would counter with, you're going to have way more access in the summertime. Professors are available, right? You might be able to sit down with the professor of the computer science program, at Purdue, and just, talk shop and have lunch, right? You couldn't do that in the fall. Your admission teams are much more available, right? So you're going to get a more personal experience in the summer. And I genuinely think it's worth your time to get some feet on the ground. And to Wilmara's point, you don't need to see every college in America. You don't have to do that. I think you need to see enough of a variety to know the difference between this type of school and this type of school. Our students tend to think they have a good handle on it all, right? But their sphere of understanding is so small, right? It's limited by how they grew up and what they know and their influences around them. Take them out of their box. Go see a small liberal arts school. Go check out a rural school. What does that feel like? Take them to a few different kinds of places to check out the vibe. All right. Essay exploration, we'll give them a head start in English over the next few weeks, but I would continue to think about how they want to tell their story over the summer. Testing options. Contrary to what popular media may, be fear-mongering, we are a test optional country still. 98% of colleges, over 2,100 colleges, are test optional. Now, are schools still valuing scores? You bet. Absolutely, they're valuing scores, especially if they're really good. So I would consider what your testing options look like going into the fall. If your student didn't test well earlier this month and they maybe test again in June and it doesn't really work out for them, let's switch gears. Let's consider what a test optional situation could look like. All right. If your student is a strong test taker, does that mean I'm looking at a fall test? How am I structuring that? How am I building that around my schedule? So consider what your real testing approach is going to be. Okay. And then a summer experience. I'll touch that on the next page. So here's some cool things kids can be doing. Don't underestimate a summer job. I'm telling you, you don't have to go enroll at a 6-week class at Harvard to impress a college. Colleges are equally as impressed if you worked at an ice cream shop for 8 weeks and you were able to show up every day. You were counted on by your fellow peers, right? You have an adult who supervises you. Summer jobs are still really important. They show off a lot of skills that colleges are really interested in. Camps are great, right? I mean, go do a camp. You're not going to be able to do this stuff when you're 25 years old, right? If they want to go be a camp counselor, or they really love going to this camp in Wisconsin they've been going to for 10 years, I love it. Let them do it. Go be a kid. Their time being a kid is running out. Volunteering. This is really good too. You want to make sure that your student, if they're service oriented, is staying connected to their volunteer experience. Ms. Gleber mentioned Mr. Ford. Jackson's a great point of contact. If your student's interested in continuing to serve over the summer, Jackson, I'd go right to him. He's a great contact point. Pre-college programs, be careful here. I think they're valuable. Some of them are cash grabs. Some of them can be really valuable experiences. For example, let's say you have a young daughter who's really interested in STEM. There's some great women in STEM camps. Purdue runs a great one. But make sure that the experience is worth their time. Some of them are just asking for $6,000 for you to spend 5 days on a campus and you don't really learn anything, right? So do your homework on the pre-college programs. They're not that impressive to colleges unless you're actually doing something tangible, like working with a professor or getting your hands dirty in a lab, something like that. But we have an extremely thorough pre-college roster on our website. You'll find literally hundreds of options categorized there on our DePaul Prep College page. Independent research is kind of fun. If your kid's really nerding out on something, Let's say they're really interested in like water safety. Like there's nothing wrong with building out an independent research project of their own. And, you know, what tells a college about your interests more than you going and doing something self-led over the summer? I think it's really cool. Independent research is really underrated. And then just doing the things that they'd love to do, right? I think we get too caught up in filling all these boxes out on the Common App, when in reality, if you really sit down and talk to college admissions folks, and this is the world I live in, right? What they really want to know, they want just a few takeaways of who you are as a student, as a person. You know, it can be you're an avid reader, right? It can be you're a fisherman. It can be you just love, you know, you love repairing old cars, something like that. Whatever passion it is that your son or daughter has, I would really encourage you to not let that go in place of something you think would impress a college. Because I promise you it's the opposite. They really want a little slice of your personality. All right. I feel like I took up a lot of air there, Allison. I'll kick it back to you.
Really important nuggets of information, and I think this was a really useful evening. There is one question left before we let everyone go. We are going to end it at 7:30. Tony, do you know, or Joe, it being my first year, I'm not sure. You said that the AP classes are going to be having the essay workshop. Are the IB English classes also going to have some form of essay prep as well?
Yes. Yes.
Great.
We're going to
Wonderful.
start with the, I think next week, Tuesday, I'm in class. We're going to start with the English 3 and the honors kids.
Mhm.
And then we'll start pushing into the AP and the AP classes once they take their AP exam, because there's this weird 3-week window, right, Joe, where it's like,
Yeah.
they took the AP exam. What do we do?
Yep.
So we're going to be in there post AP exam, and then IBs. You know, Heidi, Ms. B runs they have a pretty tight program, but she's carved out a couple of windows in the next month and a half for the IB students as well.
Wow. That's amazing. That's so great. We really appreciate everybody's time, and this is recorded, and we will post it to our YouTube channel. We'll post the presentation to our website. Be sure to reach out to your child's counselor, college counselor, any of us with further questions. But just a ton of gratitude to the speakers this evening. Wilmara, your wisdom and your time and generosity this evening. Best of luck, everyone, as we head into this final year of your child's life, and take very good care.
Go Rams.
Go Rams.
Go Rams.